6:04, Talk 107.3 FM, WBRP, mornings with Brian Haldane, off and running. Brian here with you. John LaBeouf producing. 43 degrees in downtown Baton Rouge to start off your Tuesday show. Man, we are counting it down to the legislative session, which is coming up on Monday. It is a fiscal session, but there's no shortage of topics to cover as we get ready for it. A lot of legal reform. I'll tell you what, we'll find out what Jeff Crouere, the host of Ringside Politics, what he's eyeing up later on this hour. We'll also talk with State Senator Patrick McMath in the third hour. He's got some pre-filed bills that I find intriguing. Those are just two of the conversations we're going to have today. We'll give you the rest of the rundown in a minute. Right now, though, let's hit up top stories and trending.
Number 5.
A man convicted of killing his neighbor and shooting two East Baton Rouge Parish Sheriff's deputies during a standoff will spend the rest of his life in prison. A judge sentenced Henry Williams for the 2022 killings of his neighbor, 25-year-old Ronald LaDuff. This is our news partners at WBRZ previously reported that video showed Williams shooting LaDuff in the back 7 times at a home off Florida Boulevard. Deputies Cade Babin and Jeremy Yantis were wounded by that gunfire. Williams was arrested while trying to escape through the back door of the house. Like we said, life in prison for Williams.
Number 4.
A Gonzales woman pleaded guilty Monday to child pornography charges after arranging for a juvenile to be photographed by a self-described pedophile in 2020. 40-year-old Hannah Kenshin arranged to have the photos taken for the minor victim's modeling career between July and October of 2020. Kenshin is scheduled to be sentenced on July 15th, faces a mandatory penalty of 5 years in prison, could face a maximum of up to 20.
Number 3.
Members of the East Baton Rouge Mosquito Abatement and Rodent Control met Monday morning to discuss giving up about $6 million and splitting their secondary millage to fund city parish programs. This comes after a proposal that Thrive East Baton Rouge, which was pitched by Mayor President Sid Edwards, to redirect tax dollars from various agencies, including the Mosquito Control Board and the library, to a city parish general fund.
Number 2.
Police responded to a fatal shooting that happened Sunday evening. BRPD was called out to a home on Geronimo Street shortly before 7 p.m. When officers arrived, they found a man, 40-year-old Kevin Dale Evans, dead in his home with multiple gunshot wounds. Anyone with information on this is asked to contact Crime Stoppers at 344-STOP.
Number 1.
Governor Jeff Landry is going to join LED Secretary Susan Bourgeois, and I believe our good friends over at the Baton Rouge Area Chamber will be there as well for another major economic development announcement. There's another project that will drive innovation and create new opportunities for the state. The announcement will be at 10 o'clock this morning, coming from the governor's press room on the 4th floor of the Capitol. What's trending there, John?
Well, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu vowed on Monday to eliminate the trade deficit with the United States after Israel was hit with a 17% tariff by Trump last week.
So we're starting to see the country stack up, right?
Yeah.
Those that want to cut a net zero deal, I'm sure for a lot of them, the net zero deal is going to be just fine. For a few, like China, like the European Union, the president's probably going to want a little bit more. And we got to get Scott Burns back on. Economist Dr. Scott Burns. We had him on, I want to say week before last.
Yeah.
Whatever.
I think it was last week.
It was Liberation Day.
Yeah.
Right. That was last Wednesday, right? Yep. I'll tell you what, we'll see it. We'll reach out, see if we can't get him back on tomorrow. Because as comical as Liberation Day was, it's not going to be all wins and it's not going to be all losses. So,
and speaking of tariffs, looks like you can add gamers to the anti-tariff contingent. After a flashy rollout last week, orders of Nintendo Switch 2 are being put on hold.
Oh my gosh, whatever will we do?
What are we going to do?
The Switch 2 is going to have to wait?
Man. And to us, I know we joke, but man, there are probably people really up in arms about this.
I'm sure there are. I am absolutely 100% certain that there are. And I'm not trying to get in the way of somebody's leisure time. But I don't know. So I somehow missed the whole gaming thing.
Yeah.
And so far, so good with keeping James off of it.
Really?
Oh, he's just straight up. Oh, he's only 8. So he's not going to do the gaming thing where he's connected to other people. Right. But he's also not like rocking the Mario Kart either. So He's a Lego kid.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
That is really cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, so everyone's affected by this. Gamers and prime ministers alike. So, yep. Hey, the Dodgers got their White House visit yesterday after winning last year's World Series. They're in DC for a 3-game series versus the Nationals.
So I saw that. I'm not trying to hate on them here because you have 162 baseball games in a year,
right?
But maybe don't go on a game day. I'm just throwing this out there.
Yeah.
I'm just throwing this out there. Maybe don't go on a game day. And look, I'm here to see the Dodgers lose. They're going to win the whole thing. They've got the roster. They got Shohei and Mookie and everybody else. And I understand all that. So this is not going to hurt them. But yes, they did go to the White House yesterday. And yes, they did lose to the Nationals. So, when you drop a contest 6-4, both teams had 9 hits, but the Dodgers had 2 errors. I mean, maybe your head's not in the ball game because you were just in the oval. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. And as much as I don't like the Dodgers, I don't want to see the Nationals win either because they're in the same division as the Mets, who did pick up a win yesterday. So I don't know. I'm not hating on it. You're out on the East Coast for, you just played 3 games in Philly. Now you got 3 games in the nation's capital. So swing on by the White House. Just swing on by.
Just swing. Just stop in for a little
pop
visit.
in. Pop in.
Little visit.
Bzz. Yeah, it's the Dodgers. Come on up. Gates open. Come on up.
Why not?
611 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP. You know where you can pop in if you're downtown? Mathern's. They've got you covered as not just a great lunch spot with a fantastic lunch counter and an even better salad bar, but full-service grocery store as well. Not downtown? No problem. You're on LSU's campus? They've got you covered. Right there in the Nicholson Gateway Shopping Center, right across the street from Tiger Stadium. In fact, I had the Jay Johnson Show last night. I was producing the Jay Johnson Show, and if I'm working for LSU at all, I'm swinging by and hitting up the wing bar. So I went half and half between the lemon pepper wings and the Cajun wings. Can't go wrong. Can't go wrong there. Now, heads up. Highland, just west of Kenilworth. Highland, just west of Kenilworth. The OG Baton Rouge location for the old school Kenilworth supermarket is back. It's Mathern's Market. The family you love, the prices you miss have come back to the Kenilworth area. Now, let's combine all 3. Download the Mathern's Rewards app today and start earning cash towards more groceries at any of the 3 locations. It's Mathern's. .616 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP mornings with Brian Haldane rolling right along. Sports time. We'll get to LSU baseball here in just a minute as they're on the road tonight, taking on Nichols at Nichols. NCAA championship game last night. This is coming off the heels of the women's game on Sunday, where UConn was phenomenal and just poleaxed South Carolina. It was Sunday's game was magnificent if you're a UConn fan. Last night, as the game is coming to a close and Florida's beating Houston 65-63, I'm seeing post after post after post on social media about monumental game. What a historic battle. What a war. That game was dookie last night. Neither team shot above 40% from the floor. Florida was at 39%. Houston was at 34%. You had turnovers like an LSU game. Yeah, there was a lot of really good defense, but there was a lot of really bad offense. Things weren't very thought out, planned out. Nothing was drawn up to plan. And that was evident no more than in the final seconds of the game, where you see a guy go to shoot and then like just drop the ball because his shot would have been blocked. By the way, lean into him, draw the foul. Anyway, here's how the final of the game sounded on Westwood One.
It off now to Uzan. Uzan on the right-hand wing. Stops with 7 seconds. Gives it to Crouere. 6 seconds to go. 5 seconds to Sharp. Top of the key. Lost the dribble. He's got to pick it up. It's scooped up by Condon. Condon secures it. And Florida found a way. From 12 down to the school's third national championship in men's basketball. 65-63 the final. The Florida Gators are the national champions once again.
Walter Clayton Jr., best player on the floor throughout the entirety of the tournament, didn't score a point until like 10 minutes left in the game. And if you were Houston, you've got to be wondering, why is our lead not bigger? And we're not going to go the whole night keeping Walter Clayton Jr. blanked here. If he scores at all, things are going to start to go in the opposite direction. That's exactly what happened on the back end. A couple of other quick notes. The refs were definitely noticeable in the game. One thing you don't want in a major college basketball game is for the refs to determine anything. And there was a stretch with about, I want to say it was just over 10 minutes left. It was between the under 12 and under 8-minute timeouts in the second half, where Houston got 4 fouls in under 30 seconds. And had to send 2 guys to the bench because they went from 3 to 4 fouls. Their best player fouled out with 45 seconds to go. No telling how things would have turned out if he had stayed in the game. Joseph Tugler. It was a close game. It was a nerve-wracking game. It was one that had you on the edge of your seat. So I understand the want to say it was a good game, but it wasn't a good game. It was not very well played. And this coming on the heels of 2 semifinal games that were historic. Nonetheless, Todd Golden is a national champion. In fact, here was Golden after the game.
I've just been incredibly blessed. I have an amazing staff. We clearly have the best team in America. And in 3 short years in Gainesville, we got the basketball program back where it belongs, which is raising trophies, playing in Final Fours, and competing for national championships. Super fortunate to be with this group right here.
6:20. We'll talk LSU baseball after the Fox Business Report. Galen, UConn women's performance was spectacular. The men's game was less. Yeah. If you're going side-by-side comparison of what was more entertaining, I'll put my money on UConn women, who shot 48% on the night, compared to Florida, who shot 39% on the night. I never thought I would see the day where I would vocally assert that I preferred to watch women's basketball over men's. And then when you add into it, and I know you can't take account for this, but when you add into it the relationship that Gino Auriemma has with his players, versus the mercenary attitude of NCAA men's basketball. It just, the emotion of that is special. Do we think LSU men's basketball will ever be competitive again? Yeah, we're going to be good next year. I firmly believe that. They're spending the right amount of money to have us play about 500 ball in Southeastern Conference play. I think they've got the right players out of the transfer portal. Recruits are a crapshoot, and I trust Matt McMahon. Yes, it will. Oh, he's the end of an era, man. He's a giant. He's a titan. All right, let's head back to that Chapel Star Traffic Center. What we're looking at right now is your normal volume on I-12 westbound coming in from Denham Springs. In fact, right around that range exit, you are going to tap the brakes a little bit before it picks back up. Once it does pick up, again, you're good to go all the way through the 10-12 merge. Speaking of 10, I-10 westbound coming in from Ascension Parish looks great. 10 westbound coming in from West Baton Rouge looks great. I-110 looks great as well, as do both bridges. On your surface streets, we got one accident to look out for. That's North Harrells Ferry Road at South Sherwood Forest Boulevard. North Harrells Ferry at South Sherwood. There's a traffic accident in the roadway being worked by BRPD right now. That should look at traffic from the Shawville Star Traffic Center. .624 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP. Mornings with Brian Haldane rolling right along as we continue. Sometimes we do run over on our sports segments, so we have to push things back a little bit. That's exactly what we're doing right now. LSU moving back up in the college rankings, as high as third in college baseball polls after the sweep at Oklahoma over the weekend. Coach Jay Johnson says, talking about his team over the weekend, he was concerned about his team's mindset heading into the final game of the series. You got the win of the series. You're on the road, frigid temperatures on Saturday, but he knew right away that those worries were for naught.
Man, I hope these guys don't just like go through the motions and want to get out of here as fast as you can, because it was like physically uncomfortable. I mean, they're running around during BP and smiling and laughing and hitting line drives, and they're still executing their bunts and working on defense. I was like, we'll be fine. We're going to be fine today.
LSU did not allow an earned run. It's so ridiculous. in the sweep over Oklahoma. I mean, Oklahoma's at home and couldn't put up an earned run on the Tigers. Pitching coach Nate Yeske's father, by the way, passed away on Thursday. Yeske did stay with the team to call pitches over the weekend. Jay Johnson says LSU's success on the mound shows why he is one of the best in the country.
I have a very high opinion of him, and it's warranted. When all you have to do is look how many pitching coaches have been in Omaha 5 or 6 times over the last 18 years. Been a part of a national championship, done it at 3 schools. Hopefully 4th. Like my hope is, we just keep adding to that for him at LSU.
One of the question marks heading into the season was at catcher, and who was going to step up to the role. Luis Hernandez was showing earlier on in the season that he was getting the job done behind the plate, but since conference play started, he's been doing it with his bat as well. Cut 19, if you would.
We're winning largely because of he's catching great, and then in the 7-hole, you're getting huge hit after huge hit after huge hit against the best pitching. I knew he would be able to handle this caliber of pitching in terms of swinging the bat.
Like we said, LSU goes on the road tonight. They are at Nichols. It'll be a 6:30 start time. 6:30 start time at Nichols. 6 p.m. will be pregame on our sister station, Eagle 98.1. Then the road swing continues for LSU heading into the weekend. Friday, Saturday, Sunday series at Auburn this weekend before coming home for, I want to say it's a 9-game homestand after that. But got to get through this week on the road. At Nichols tonight, at Auburn over the weekend. Talk 107.3 and the Baton Rouge Clinic bring you the 2025 Dreams Come True Radiothon. Dreams Come True is an organization designed to help grant dreams for children with life-threatening illnesses and their families. The following local businesses, along with us sponsoring, have pledged to match your donations throughout the month. Lewis Mechanical, Patient Plus, Action Industries, Subaru of Baton Rouge, Service Chevrolet, Luba, and Duplessis Pool Builders. Visit talk1073.com to help us reach our goal, and together we can help make dreams come true. We're going to talk with Jeff Crouere in our next segment about the upcoming legislative session, what he's got his eye on. Jeff was out at the Pelican Institute's Solution Summit on last Tuesday, a week ago today, and I want to pick his brain about what really topped the charts, what felt like it was going to be one of the hot, some of the hotter button issues as well. I'm guessing tax reform and legal reform is going to be number one probably because it relates to insurance. But we'll see what else is showing up on Jeff's radar coming up in our next segment. Bring it back here, though. Can't go too far without talking about tariffs. And that's exactly what our news partners at the Louisiana Radio Network were doing when they talked with Dr. Lauren Scott. Scott says economists generally oppose tariffs, calling them a really bad plan. However, you can't look at the whole board without looking at the individual pieces. And there are certain industries that might benefit, such as the timber industry here in Louisiana, because of reduced competition from Canada.
And number 2, from plywood coming in from China, or plywood coming in from anywhere, but there's a lot of plywood that comes to this country from China. It's going to reduce the amount of competition.
Scott says one possible exception outside of Louisiana is Hyundai, who recently announced that $5.8 billion investment in a new steel plant to supply their car factories in Georgia and Alabama.
And so, they will now have steel that is relatively inexpensive compared to foreign steel that's coming in. The foreign steel will have a 25% tariff on it.
And they're not the only ones. I mean, Hyundai, they made their big splash investment, but we've got a homegrown company right over there in Livingston Parish and Metal Fab guys who pivoted their business model because of this. And the very first thing that happened was they signed a multi-million-dollar contract with a company out of Canada who said, you know what, we're not going to pay for the steel. We would rather have you guys handle it, and we'll be the benefactors of not having to pay the tariffs on shipping it in the country. So there are going to be wins along the way. It's not that blanket. It's not that cut and dry. By the way, similarly, commercial seafood producers, particularly shrimpers, could benefit from reduced foreign competition. Scott says, aside from these, you might not see a whole lot more to benefit from the tariffs. Cut 5.
It's really tough to think of many others off the top of my head that benefit, but certainly those will.
It's 6:30. Here's news. I could have left that last cut on the floor. It wouldn't have mattered. Oh. Good morning, Christy. Welcome in, Bill. Yep. Oh. Time to get a look at your forecast. Here's WBRZ meteorologist Tim McCade Cowan. .637 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP mornings with Brian Haldane rolling right along. So 1 week ago today, about 30 feet down from where I was at, was Jeff Crouere, host of Ringside Politics, outside of the Solutions Summit for the Pelican Institute. He's on with us now. Jeff, how are you, brother?
Hey, Brian, it was good seeing you.
Likewise, always. I hate that like we're on at the same time once you get rolling at 7, because we don't get a chance to catch up or anything. It's just you get in there and you just grind and right down to business. So, but let's talk about that. What were some of your takeaways from the Solutions Summit?
I always enjoy it. I mean, it's always a highlight for me because they load us up with some great guests and people like Grover Norquist, who's a friend. I've known him for so long, and he's been in the fight for decades, and he's got a great perspective. And then to see to meet all the different Pelican folks that are working hard and coming up with ideas for the state. And I think it's just it's always great to get people together and talk about what can be done in the upcoming session and how to move Louisiana forward. I think the Pelican Institute really stands alone. I think they do fabulous work. So I'm a big fan, love being part of it. And I think the summit's very useful to gather people together right on the threshold of the session starting, and here we are again, and another opportunity to try to move Louisiana forward. And I do think we've made some steps. Obviously, there's a lot of work that needs to be done because the state is still losing population, and we have made some progress with some big announcements in recent months that the governor has landed, which I think is fabulous. But we were in a big hole when he started. Big hole.
Oh no, absolutely. And the individual announcements are great. And there's another one coming up at 10 o'clock this morning. The individual announcements are great, but it's not the steady, the day to day. It's too interspersed to make up the ground that's been lost. And we need there will be a lot more of them, and we need a lot more of them. What on your show of the guests that you had, what do you think is going to translate into real legislation that moves forward?
Well, I mean, that's a good question. And just looking at, I guess, where we are, and this was a guest that I didn't have at the Pelican Institute, but one I had, I believe, the next day. Just the insurance question, I mean, I think is to me, so I visit regularly with the commissioner, and that to me is just the big issue right now, the big problem because of the costs. I just did a refinancing of my home, and just the insurance costs. I mean, he told me that it's averaging a 6% increase. I think it's a lot more than that, and the team that I work with telling me that that's what they're seeing as well. So it's still, it's still galloping fast and rising fast. So I would just think that is just got to be at the forefront of, what's going to happen at this session. And if not, I know the commissioner keeps talking about a special session. I don't know if that's going to happen, but I really am looking to see what kind of progress is made there in this session.
The possibility of a special session, it's going to depend on how far they can get during the regular session. And I honestly, you read headlines about like this turkey hunt with the governor and the speaker and the Senate president and a couple of trial attorneys. And I don't know if headlines like that help or hurt, or I shouldn't say the headline, the event itself helps or hurts to have conversations that move things along, or does this show you who's in bed with whom, and we could just pretty much assume that nothing's going to happen?
Well, and that's the key to it right there. I mean, that the impression is that there's a close tie between the trial attorneys and the governor, and that we're not going to see much court reform. We're not going to see much of that. So that's the impression that I think is sort of prevalent out there. I don't know if that's the case or not. Don't know, but that's certainly something people see. I think. I mean, you just look at the lawsuit that was filed against, the Chevron, aka Texaco.
Yeah.
The big award that was just given by a jury down in Plaquemines Parish, and I wonder what kind of chilling effect that's going to have on, oil and gas. And talked to people afterwards and said, "There you go. That's your example right there. That's what people dip into in Louisiana when they have to do business here, and it's just not conducive for a thriving business climate."
No, 100%.
That kind of thing has been going on for a long time.
Yeah, 100%. And when you see something like that, there's many coastal lawsuits that are still floating out there. And I don't know, you're going to have a better finger on the pulse for this one than I am, because it's a lot more prevalent in New Orleans. And then as you get closer to the Gulf as well with the coastal lawsuits. But is this, when you look at the 740 plus million as compared to what they were asking, I mean, right. 740 million is a big number, but weren't they asking like 3 billion or something?
Yeah, it was like a fourth of what they were asking. Right. Or a third, right, that they finally derived, but it's still a big number, obviously. And
yeah.
I know that it was considered certainly a victory against, the industry. On the other hand, I mean, there's the anger at the coastal erosion, and there's the real belief that the oil and gas industry has been part of that and has been, responsible, and they haven't, done their fair share, and leads us back to the diversion and, where we stand on that. And, we're all these years post oil spill. I mean, what have we really done to restore the coast? I mean, what are we doing? That's one of the biggest issues that we face, and it's just been frustrating to really not see the kind of progress that we should have been seeing on that for a long time.
Yeah, no, 100%. We got Jeff Crouere on with us from Ringside Politics down in New Orleans. Let's bring it back to the Pelican Institute's Solution Summit right there, and you mentioned insurance. What about, and I know this kind of dovetails, it's kind of like there's a lot of crossover here. But what about just legal reform overall? I feel like the want for it, at least on the Pelican Institute side, is at a level where they're finally not just saying we want this, but they're making the argument in a way that people understand it.
Right. Yeah. And I think, as they are on so many issues, Brian, at the forefront, really advocating the kind of reform that Louisiana needs. Yeah, they really have. And it's going to be interesting to see how things work out between, reformers like that, your people that have been there a long time in the legislature, and then the governor and his team. And, on all the issues, there's not going to be agreement, which is interesting. Certainly on issues like criminal justice, and what really I think are just two different visions on how to make the state safer, and there's just a difference of opinion there. So I think we're now seeing it on legal reform, and we'll see if there's some other areas that develop. And this is all happening after an election where you had a big defeat for the governor, and how does that influence his power and his agenda as we, now step into this session starting Monday? So, there'll be a lot of eyes on what happens over these next few months in Baton Rouge to see what can be done and what can't be done. What can be salvaged out of that debacle that occurred on the 29th.
So, I had one of my guests last Tuesday was State Senator Blake Miguez, and he was very diplomatic, very statesmanly about how we move forward after Amendment 2 fails. And I'm like, Senator Miguez, all due respect, I get to be cranky. You still got a job to do. I get to throw a tantrum and pound my fists and everything because that was just a bad beat. And like picking up from it is not going to be easy because all of the individual pieces, we need the good with the bad in order to move us forward.
Right. And, I do wonder, how that could have been handled differently. I mean, maybe, maybe not so much, maybe a better communication so that people weren't so confused. Maybe not the way it was handled. So, yeah, maybe they can piecemeal some of that in this session and figure out what to do. But, really shocking when you look at the 65-35, that was a beat down, Brian.
Yeah. Well,
that was
so. I'm with you right there, Jeff, because I think if you want to beat that, you've got to divide and conquer. There are too many people who profit off the way our state constitution is written right now to want to see it changed. They profit off of our woes, and they don't want to see it change. And we had too many of them all at once who had too big of a voice and got so much misinformation out, at the 11th hour. Hey, last one before I get you out of here. And this is way out of left field. I got Congressman Troy Carter coming on at 8:35. We do that every Tuesday. It's called DC Curt, presented by LABI. One of the topics I'm going to talk with Congressman Carter about is the letter that he sent out about not dismantling FEMA. What's the pulse down in New Orleans about this idea that we can just get rid of, that Kristi Noem wants to get rid of FEMA?
I mean, it's sort of a mixed bag. I mean, I think there's a lot of resentment still about Katrina and how it was mishandled and how FEMA did, really a horrible job because of very poor leadership, someone who was in charge who shouldn't have been in charge, and how people suffered needlessly for a long time. And there's been so many questions about FEMA since. You just look at what happened recently where FEMA's accused of not helping people that had Trump signs in their yard.
Right.
I mean, that's just, that's unacceptable, Brian.
No, 100%. I don't know at what point we throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Right. I am open to ideas on how we can fix it, and possibly it can be salvaged. But I'd be interested to hear what Congressman Carter's going to have to say about that, because I would hope he would agree that it needs to be fixed, that there's a problem there.
Yeah, it's one of those ones where it's completely broken, and we're going to argue every time we want to see it fixed. And yeah, I'm definitely hitting him up for solutions, not just the problem. In the meanwhile, you got a show to get to. We always appreciate the time. We'll talk to you next week.
All right, Brian. Take care.
He is Jeff. You too. He is Jeff Crouere, host of Ringside Politics down in New Orleans. 6:50. Here's your money now. I'm thinking about flushing the next segment to make fun of a state senator. I don't know what it's going to do for me, though. I don't think there's any. Yeah, it's risk versus reward type of thing, and I'm actually probably going to see him tonight. So he's a big dude. In fact, it's right there in his name, Big Mike Fazy.
He's from my neck of the woods, huh?
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. You know what? F it. I'm doing it.
Yeah,
I'm doing it. It's because I'm keep the 4, 5, and 6 in there.
Yeah, I'm more familiar with his son.
What does his son do?
He was he owned the City Club in Houma. He was a show promoter and a little business owner.
Oh.
But they own why am I drawing a blank now? It's an offshore company in Houma. I can't remember the freaking name of the company. But yeah, so he did something a little off-putting. Do I need any cuts?
4, 5, and 6.
Oh, you're not gonna do it.
No, I'm gonna tie it in.
Oh, okay. I got you. Yeah, I got the cuts.
.655 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP mornings with Brian Haldane rolling right along. Thanks again to Jeff Crouere from Ringside Politics for hopping on board to kind of preview, or I should say review, last week's Solutions Summit from the Pelican Institute. We're going to dig in on the upcoming legislative session a lot more as this show wears on today, and as we get closer and closer to the session. Every year during the legislative session, we team up with Jason DeCuire from Advantage Consulting to give us breakdowns of things as they're happening, specifically on the money stuff. And it's a fiscal session, so yes, let's go. We're going to start that this week. I don't know if he knows it yet, but yes, we're starting it this Thursday, 7:15. Jason DeCuire from Advantage Consulting. He's going to join us every Thursday at that time, just to take a deep dive into what's going on that particular week. And he more than has his finger on the pulse of what's going on in the state capitol. Digging back in on that in just a second, got to tell you about the folks over at Landmark Bank, landmarkbankla.com, landmarkbankla.com. Back in 1897, some folks got together and decided they want to form a community bank, and that's what they did, and that's how Landmark Bank was formed. That was 1897, and then now in 2025, you know what they are? A community bank. When you walk into Landmark Bank, you don't just have a bank, you have a banker. You have someone who can work with you, whether you're talking about personal banking or business banking, whether you're talking about buying your first home, refinancing a home, putting an addition on a home, or taking that leap and starting your own business, growing your business. Either way, Landmark Bank has got you covered with a banker, someone who knows and understands your wants, dreams, and desires and can help you get there. Check them out online at landmarkbankla.com. Talking about the upcoming session, the Pelican Institute came out with their Pelican Pulse poll. They released the results of the poll at the lunchtime session at the Solution Summit last week. I'm always amazed by what is overly important and then what some legislators find to be important. For example, the Pelican Pulse poll, Daniel Ersbaumer, the CEO, says the poll shows voters believe government spending right now is completely out of control.
2/3 of Louisiana voters said that government spending is too much, and they support specific reforms to limit its growth.
Big government spending's a problem. What about sending my kid to school where I want them to go?
A majority of voters support giving families public school options beyond their assigned zip code, and almost 2/3 of voters want the Louisiana Gator Scholarship Program to be fully funded.
And as we talked about with Jeff Crouere in our last segment, insurance premiums, that's kind of a thing, right?
Voters are saying, yes, this is a very important issue. They want the legislature to tackle it, and they believe lawsuit abuse is a critical component to making that fix.
You know, political crazy person. James Carville once said, it's the economy, stupid. And that is carried for more than 30 years now. Anything that affects my wallet is what I'm going to be looking at in the legislative session. Anything that affects that has a direct effect is what I'm going to be looking at. Meanwhile, I can't help but notice from time to time that some state legislators, boy, they go down a rabbit hole and they just can't get out. And I know I'm the nerd who looks up pre-filed legislation. I get that. I understand. But have you seen what Big Mike Fazie's up to for this particular session? Senate Bill 2 wants to remove fluoride from the water. Senate Bill 19 talks about the dispensing of ivermectin. Senate Bill 46 prohibits the intentional release of chemicals to control the weather. He is full on Senator Alex Jones at this point. We got a break. News is coming your way.
They're making the frogs gay.
He's putting chemicals in the water that turn the freaking frogs gay. Turn the freaking frogs gay. I don't have enough voice to do that right now. I'm hanging on by a thread. If you read the history of the fluoridation of water, which, God, why wouldn't you? Fucking riveting. But as I remember it, most of the problem started when the movie Dr. Strangelove came out. And one of the characters in Dr. Strangelove said that all the fluoridation was a communist plot.
What about chemtrails?
He doesn't have a chemtrail bill.
I wonder if that affects the weather.
The chemtrails? Well, chemtrails would be the putting the chemicals in the air to control the weather. Oh. Do I want another cup of coffee? I don't want to have to make another pot. Patrick Reynolds, did G give 100K to the GOP and 15K to Landry and fly them to Texas on his personal jet? Is the tail wagging G the dog or what? Yeah, okay. Problem is we don't know, and we're never ever going to know, because Jeff Landry didn't have to run for his post because the Republican Party anointed him the candidate. And that's not a knock on Jeff Landry. That's a knock on the state Republican Party for not forcing the candidate to go through any level of scrutiny at all. If we'd had town hall meetings with Jeff Landry and debates with Jeff Landry and Stephen Wagasback and John Schroeder and, well, who else was running at the time? Was Sharon Hewitt was in that mix? Richard Nelson. If there was an actual debate amongst Republicans, we might have learned something. Still bitter, Brian? Yes. FEMA needs to go away. Added bureaucracy and no value add. See, I would say that, but like, I don't know. I'm stuck on the devil I know, right? Like, yes, it's awful, but it would be worse if it were gone until you have a replacement. I had too much going. Hey, Scott. Was that a Tasmanian devil impression? Yeah. 7:05 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP mornings with Brian Haldane, rolling right along. Hour 2 coming your way right now. Brian, here with you. John LaBeouf producing. 43 degrees to start off your second hour. A second hour that's going to bring you Jake Polansky from the Baton Rouge Area Chamber in our next segment. A little BR by the numbers. Let's talk about population for the greater Baton Rouge area. Baton Rouge Police Chief TJ Morse at 7:35. He's going to be on the hotline this morning. He had a prior commitment, and I was like, you know what? Don't want to lose the segment, so let's get you on the phone. If you can't be here in person, on the phone, we'll get it done. In our 8 o'clock hour, we've got State Senator Patrick McMath at 8:15. And Congressman Troy Carter, a little DC current presented by LABI at 8:35. Right now, you know how we start off the second hour. Top stories and trending.
Number 5.
A Gonzales woman pleaded guilty yesterday to child pornography charges after arranging for a juvenile to be photographed by a self-described pedophile back in 2020. 40-year-old Hannah Kinchin arranged to have photos taken for the minor victim, the minor victim's modeling career, by the way, between July and October of 2020. Kinchin is scheduled to be sentenced on July 15th, faces a mandatory minimum penalty of 5 years in prison, could face a maximum of up to 20 years.
Number 4.
Members of the East Baton Rouge Mosquito Abatement and Rodent Control met yesterday morning to discuss giving up about $6 million and splitting their secondary millage to fund city parish programs. This comes after the Thrive EBR proposal was pitched by Mayor President Sid Edwards to redirect tax dollars from various agencies, including mosquito control and the library, to a city parish general fund, so the city can run everything and not just the things that we want,
Number 3.
but some of the things that we need instead. A man convicted of killing his neighbor and shooting 2 East Baton Rouge Parish Sheriff's deputies during a standoff will spend the rest of his life in prison. A judge sentenced Henry Williams for the 2022 killing of his neighbor, 25-year-old Ronald LaDuff. He also shot deputies Cade Babin and Jeremy Yantis. They were both wounded by gunfire in that same incident.
Number 2.
Police responded to a fatal shooting that happened Sunday evening. BRPD was called out to a home on Geronimo Street shortly before 7 p.m. Sunday. When they arrived, they found 40-year-old Kevin Dale Evans dead in his home with multiple gunshot wounds. No suspects have been arrested in this yet. Anyone with information is asked to call Crime Stoppers at 344-STOP.
Number 1.
Governor Jeff Landry will join LED Secretary Susan Bourgeois in the Baton Rouge area chamber this morning for another major economic development announcement. This is another project that will drive innovation and create new opportunities for our state. The announcement will be at 10 o'clock this morning from the governor's press room. Oh. What's trending,
Well,
John?
Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu on Monday vowed to eliminate the trade deficit with the United States after Israel was hit with a 17% tariff by Trump last week.
Look, I'll take it. It's when we can see wins, let's get wins, because there's so much doom and gloom, especially with the stock market.
Right.
But the economy is bigger than the stock market. And that's when you see more and more countries come to the table and that list continues to grow, then they're not all going to be wins. But
Right.
when you see more and more countries come to the table, that is going to be better for us because there will be more avenues for better trade when we negotiate down, not ramp up, like what China did. China ramped up. So what are we going to do? We're going to ramp up again. We're going to double down. And you can't. Well, I shouldn't say you can't. It's just not. It's not how I would play. That's not how I would play. I'm more like sitting across from Teddy KGB. I'll just check.
There you go.
Rounders reference at 7:09.
I like that.
Give that man his money.
Speaking of tariffs, looks like you can add gamers to the anti-tariff contingent. After a flashy rollout last week, orders of Nintendo Switch 2 are being put on hold.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is the most anticipating gaming console.
Get up off the
and it's
sofa.
just-
Knock the Cheeto dust off your fingers and protest. Not fair. Not fair. I need to be careful with that. The gaming community is a lot larger. Like that joke 10 years ago would have flown.
Yeah.
Not anymore. Not anymore. The gaming community, I think, is big enough to have a voice to say, hey,
he's talking about us.
Yeah.
And of course, it's important to know that the Switch, of course, is manufactured in China and Vietnam.
Yeah.
Which they were hit with 34, and I think
China was hitting back with 34, and they're going to get an additional 50 on top now.
Yeah. Ugh.
But isn't Nintendo a Japanese company?
Right.
And we're about to start negotiating things down with Japan, so
guess we'll see, huh?
Yeah.
Hey, the Dodgers got their White House visit yesterday after winning last year's World Series. They're in D.C. for a 3-game series versus the Nationals.
Yeah. They went to the White House and then promptly lost. I don't know why I find that connection funny.
I guess
What,
we had
just
mentioned last hour.
Because everybody goes to the White House in the offseason. Baseball's the only one where you got a 162-game regular season. They're on an East Coast swing. They just got done with 3 games in Philly. So they go to play 3 games in D.C. They stop by the White House and then lose 6-4 to the Nationals. I know it's a 162-game season. And I'm not a Dodgers fan by any stretch of the imagination. Yeah. But the Nationals are in my Mets division. So I need the Nationals to lose.
I guess they figured, hey, we're in town. Let's just stop by.
That's exactly what they did.
We talked about last hour.
Yeah, that's exactly how they did that. They're like, we're not planning a separate trip to the White House. We're going to be in D.C. a bunch.
Right.
That's that. And I get it.
Yeah. And of course, they were facing that pressure, not to go to the White House.
Yeah.
I guess they figured we're in town. Let's,
Hey, I will note this, though. I will note this, that while the Dodgers did lose to the Nationals 6-4, one of those 6 runs came from Dylan Cruz. Okay, Cruz was 0 for 3 on the day, but did score a run. So, yeah. It's a rough start. He's batting 094 to
But,
start
I
the
mean-
season. It's tough. 712 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP. We got to catch up with Jake Polansky from the Baton Rouge Area Chamber. So let's go ahead, stay on time. We'll break now. We'll continue next. Oh. Oh. 714 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP mornings with Brian Haldane, rolling right along. Every so often the folks at the Baton Rouge Area Chamber come out with their latest BR by the numbers, and you know what, we've got one in hand. Let's welcome in Jake Polansky. How are you, man? Welcome back.
Hey, Brian, I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing very well as well. So the long and the short of it is our population's growing.
Yeah, our population's growing. We're seeing a lot of job growth in some key sectors like healthcare and construction and leisure and hospitality too. So ultimately, we think this was a pretty good report. So I'm pretty excited to talk about it.
All right, well, let's dig in. I mean, yeah, I've read the summary and I've dug in on the report just a little bit, not the whole way through.
Yeah, so this is our quarterly dashboard, and we used to release these kind of monthly. And we decided that we're going to transition away from that and start to do these quarterly because that allows us to kind of take a longer view look at some of these trends and really capture some things that really weren't visible on a month-to-month basis.
Yes.
And so when we looked at this report, I mentioned the healthcare industry is growing. So we're up 2,400 jobs in healthcare over the last year. And I think that's really great. And when you kind of look at what's going on around the region, like Baton Rouge General's new hospital in Livingston Parish, we've seen some healthcare growth in Ascension Parish as well. These are some of those types of projects that really exemplify what's going on in the healthcare sector. But the construction sector is up too. We're seeing a lot of job growth in specialty trade contractors. We're seeing more welders, more plumbers, more pipe fitters. So that's also really great to see, especially because we have so many great projects in the pipeline and that are coming online here pretty soon. So that's really good to see. And, the other industry that we highlight kind of in the overview is the leisure and hospitality sector. Jobs in that sector, which is, you think your restaurants, think your bars, think anywhere you go to have a good time. Jobs in that sector are up about 4% over the last year. And we note that these job numbers are only through January. So since we're hosting that big bowling tournament at the River Center right now, that's like 58,000 bowlers going to the River Center from March through July, and those numbers and the impact from those bowlers are not included in this report. So we think that there's some continued growth that may happen in this sector that we'll talk about in the next quarterly report as well.
Well, in the next 2 quarterly reports, if we can really start forecasting out, because when you factor in the added, staffing needed within our hotel sector because of the bowlers, factor in the casino, the Bell coming back online with their hotel in the very near future as well. So that's going to staff up too.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be really huge because you think about where that's kind of situated downtown. I think that's going to attract maybe a different clientele, maybe people who weren't interested in walking to the Queen, but they're staying at one of those downtown hotels, and they know that Bally's is right in their backyard, and they'll say, why don't I just step on over and try my luck? So I'm pretty excited for that too, and I think that's going to be really great for tourists, but downtown residents and workers too, because there's going to be a restaurant and bar in there. I think it's really going to diversify the options that we have downtown.
And the way they're mapping out, since they're owned by the same parent company, the way they're mapping out packaging these as 2 separate products with a shuttle going back and forth in between the two, they're making it something very appealing. They're maximizing it before they even get started.
Yeah, it's it makes me really bullish on downtown, and I think that pairs really nicely with what the Plan Baton Rouge 3 kind of plan is doing right now. Sasaki's in the they're working on the plan as we speak. Public meetings are going to start, I think, at the end of this month. But I think, there's so much energy downtown right now. And if Sasaki can really capture that and help channel that into the public meetings and their plan overall, I think that downtown's looking pretty good right now.
We're talking with the latest BR by the numbers with Jake Polansky from the Baton Rouge Area Chamber. All right, let's talk about those construction jobs, because construction jobs normally mean future jobs because they're building something and they're likely building someplace where someone's going to work. So is there a way to is there like a way to figure out how many jobs are on the horizon based off of what's being built?
Yeah. So, some of these, we have a really strong base of industrial construction employment here because we have so many manufacturing and so many petrochemical facilities all across the region. So when you look at kind of what makes Baton Rouge really unique, it really is that industrial construction sector. And so, with projects like Exxon's recently announced $100 million expansion that they announced like last week, I think, projects like that really fuel that industrial construction growth. But what you may be alluding to is the Hyundai Steel project that was announced a couple weeks ago now.
Yeah.
And I think Jason was maybe with you talking about this project last week. But I mean, we're all obviously really excited about this project. We think it's going to be transformative for the capital region. And a lot of these industrial construction jobs don't yet reflect kind of the impacts that project is going to have on the region.
How difficult is it to map that out? Because a project like that, you're going to see construction jobs kicking in next year, and those construction jobs are going to be in effect for probably another year or 2 after that, and then things will roll on because it's a constant roll forward, but it's way forward.
That's right, and it's going to be a 2 or 3 year construction build out phase, and those construction laborers, it's going to be thousands of construction jobs. Some of that's going to be skilled labor. Some of that's going to be less skilled labor that they're going to need to build that facility. Mm-hmm. But, when that facility is fully built in 2029, the construction needs won't stop there. That facility is going to, need to do expansions or undergo renovations to help, meet current needs. And that's going to continue to fuel that industrial construction growth kind of long term, not only for that project, but, there's going to be, dozens of other projects throughout the region over the next few years that these industrial contractors are going to be working on. But I mean, yeah, once that facility is fully built out, they're projecting 1,300 jobs, full-time jobs at that facility. That's not including construction, which is an incredibly high number of jobs at a manufacturing facility. Mm-hmm. We note in the report that Baton Rouge's manufacturing sector right now is about 30,000 jobs and some change. So when this facility is fully built out and staffed, that has the potential to boost the manufacturing employment by the region by 4% from just one project, which is just an incredible number.
And I'm trying to decide if I want to stay on that one or move to the next one. Let's stay on that one for 1 second. All right. That's going to be 1,300 jobs coming to Donaldsonville, right? Now, not everybody's going to live in Donaldsonville or White Castle for that matter. And if everybody did, you would increase the population of Donaldsonville by over 20%. But not everyone's going to live within Donaldsonville, but they will be within the metro area. How can we start looking at making sure our infrastructure stays a step ahead of where those jobs are coming in?
No, you're absolutely right. And I'm really glad that you bring that up. I think that one of the really exciting pieces of this project is the potential that it has for Donaldsonville and for Ascension Parish. Some of these people that are going to be working at this facility full time, they already live here. They already live in the capital region. But some of them don't. And some people are going to move to the capital region to work at this facility. And I think the key thing at the end of the day is housing. These people are going to look for housing that meets their needs.
Yes.
Some of them are going to want to rent. Some of them are going to want to buy, but they're going to go to wherever the housing is. And if Ascension Parish and Donaldsonville really wants to capture these benefits from all of these people that are going to be moving here for this project, then they have to make sure that they boost their housing supply to make sure that these workers have a place to live. And the danger that these regions face if they don't boost their housing supply is that prices are going to go up. Because if you keep supply the same and demand goes way up, then for housing, prices are going to go up. And so I think that is, in particular, an opportunity for Donaldsonville to make sure that they provide, duplexes, triplexes, apartment buildings, whatever they think that the demand is going to be for these workers. I think that those are things that regional leaders need to start thinking about right now. And we're included in that conversation too.
Well, it's more than just the homes. And yes, someone should be on the phone with HGTV right now to talk about film tax credits and launching the show Flipping Ascension. But there's more than that. I was getting to the bridge. I was getting to the new bridge with that. That's where I was hoping you would walk it up to.
Yeah, and there's true infrastructure, concerns like that too. 1,300 people commuting in every day. That's a lot, and thousands of construction workers commuting on our roads every day during the build out phase, along with construction trucks and things like that.
Yeah,
that's a lot of stress that's going to be put on our regional infrastructure. So I think the only way to kind of go about it is to make sure that we're being proactive. I know that the state and DOTD is going to be working with Hyundai Steel to make sure that infrastructure at the site meets their needs. But it's infrastructure to the site as well. It's LA30, it's the bridge, it's I-10 and I-12. All of these things I think are going to be stressed and taxed a little bit more than they are now. But again, I really do think that these are opportunities, because when you do expansions like this to infrastructure, that also means more jobs. That also means more investment in the region. So all of these things I think are things that need to be addressed, but they do spell opportunity for the region.
And that's just based off the Hyundai announcement. I mean, coming up immediately after the show, I'm headed over to state capitol because there's another announcement coming up at 10 o'clock this morning. And I don't think Susan Bourgeois is anywhere near done. So we're probably going to see more in the near future.
I mean, this is one of the Hyundai Steel project is one of the biggest announcements, if not the biggest announcement in the state's history for economic development.
Oh, yeah.
You look at CapEx and jobs. And I mean, the state is on a winning streak right now. So it's fun to get to work at the Baton Rouge Area Chamber when we're seeing these projects kind of come to fruition that we've worked on for years at this point. But yeah, there's certainly a lot of momentum in the space right now.
All right, new jobs versus unemployment. We're talking with Jake Polansky from the Baton Rouge Area Chamber. Latest BR by the numbers is out. New jobs versus unemployment. What are we doing to maximize that? Well, to make sure that every job that's posted has someone that can, work in it.
Yeah, I think, when you think back like 2-3 years ago, we saw sky high demand for labor. That has really kind of come down back to earth, but we're still seeing, a healthy number of job postings across the region. And, unemployment is also pretty low now too. So I think there's still kind of a significant demand for labor when you look at kind of the supply of labor versus the demand for labor. And I think that kind of comes to the front when you look at wages. If you look at the wages that are getting posted in job postings, the average wage has grown 25% in the last year alone. About a year ago, the average wage was $46.8 thousand. And today it's $58.3 thousand. And that's just in jobs that are being advertised online. So I think that employers are kind of seeing this market for labor that they have right now. And they're saying, okay, I need to bump up my wages if I want to get the talent that I really need to do this job. And so, unemployment's low, but that's why it's so good that we're seeing our region grow overall. You kind of said that at the top. We're at 880,000 plus residents now for the first time ever in our region. And, in order to fill these jobs, we need more people coming in to be able to work these jobs.
Okay, now following up on that is where the people are coming in from. And this is the part of the BR by the numbers that this is where I really start to nerd out, Jake, is where they're coming in from. And honestly, not just who's moving here, but those that are leaving here, where are they going?
Yeah, so I love talking about this part too because I think it's really interesting. So I mean, you speak to people here anecdotally, and it sounds like everyone's kids here after they graduate high school, after they graduate college, they move to Houston, they move to Dallas, they move to Atlanta, they move to one of these larger cities, right?
Right.
And when you look at the people who are moving here, they're moving here from smaller cities. They're moving here from Alexandria, from Hammond, from Natchitoches. They're moving here from smaller cities, primarily across the state. That's really where kind of our competitive advantage is when it comes to migration. And when you think about it, when you compare Baton Rouge to these smaller cities across Louisiana, Baton Rouge is the Houston. Baton Rouge is the Atlanta or the Dallas. It is where greater economic opportunity is for these young people and these families alike.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's really kind of interesting. And that's where we should focus when we're trying to talk about talent attraction, where we're trying to bring people from. I think that is really where we could lean into a little bit. And also New Orleans. New Orleans has kind of struggled with out-migration for a while, and we see pretty strong migration from New Orleans to Baton Rouge too.
Well, you got net coming in from New Orleans, a net of 1,259. And you would think with New Orleans technically being a larger market than us, that wouldn't necessarily be the trend. Meanwhile, you move over to the North Shore, and we've got a net of negative 24 there.
Yeah, and if you want to check out this report in full and you're listening, it's at brbythenumbers.substack.com. And when we're looking at this chart, what's interesting about the chart that Brian and I are talking about right now is that it's just talking about taxpayers. So it's not talking about people. It's just talking about people who work jobs and pay taxes.
Yeah.
So, 1,200 workers net from New Orleans. That's not 1,200 people. That's not 1,200, people with kids that need to be educated in local schools and services need to be provided to, these are workers. And so I think that's also kind of really interesting too.
Last one before I get you out of here, and I greatly appreciate your time. We're talking with Jake Polansky from the Baton Rouge Area Chamber about the latest BR by the numbers. Good news across the board when it comes to new jobs. However, one of those sectors where we have seen an increase is in government. And we know that there's a very much a Doge trend going on right now. The next BR by the numbers, the next time we take a look at this, are we expecting to see a drop in government jobs?
Yeah, I think that's certainly likely. There's a hiring freeze at the state level right now. There's a hiring freeze at LSU. That's a lot of jobs right now in Baton Rouge that are under a hiring freeze. For better or worse, our economy is largely dependent on government work. But I think kind of when you reference the national level, the federal level, there's very few federal government jobs here.
Mm-hmm.
And so the next time we release this quarterly report, that will reflect any impact on federal government workers. But I'm not anticipating really seeing any drop in employment due to those federal impacts, just because, we don't have that much federal employment here to begin with.
He is Jake Polansky from the Baton Rouge Area Chamber. We always appreciate the time, man. Talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you. 7:30 at Talk 107.3 FM, WBRP. We got news, traffic, weather coming your way in just a little bit. Don't forget, Talk 107.3 welcomes comedian Rob Schneider to the Raising Cane's River Center Friday, May 16th for his, my voice is struggling. Do I have to do it?
You can do it.
Tour. Register at talk1073.com and listen to this show for your chance to win tickets to the show. Plus, when you sign up to win online, make sure you subscribe to our Talk 107.3 Baton Rouge YouTube channel for an extra entry.
Sorry, I was caught off guard. It wasn't my best one.
No.
Like,
So it got it done.
I could tell when you did the gay frog thing earlier, like that. I felt like that pushed it.
It's yeah.
I felt like it pushed it.
I don't have. Yeah, I'll be shocked if I have a voice tomorrow.
Oof.
I talked with Cade yesterday. We're working on a sub for Friday. I was told you need off.
Yeah, but I told him I can come in up until the 8 o'clock hour.
You got something going on? Or?
This kid's field trip that I was gonna be a part of. I thought it was at 11. It's nothing serious.
You didn't make it. Okay,
that's nothing.
Let's see if we can't just let you have the day off.
Yeah, because I thought it was at 11, and I was like, oh. And then I found out yesterday it's at 9. I'm like, oh. I was like, well, I could come in. It's no
between you and me. I'm getting a little bit fed up with the whole why is there no backup?
I don't think people can do it.
I know
Because everybody that comes in is like, I'm not good. I don't want to do it. I'm like, it's really not that bad.
It's not.
Really.
And when you look at the amount of audio you have to accumulate,
yeah,
go hunt down like everything. I'm not bragging, but like everything you need is in your email or already loaded in.
Exactly. And that's like
I
you don't
take
want
that into account. I realize that's part of it.
yeah, because I mean you know, producer, you've been there, you've done that, and you still do it. You know what I mean? Like you've been a producer, you know what it's like to sit on this side.
Yes.
And that's why I explain to people, I'm like, look, even me, I'm aware that look, I know this could be I know that even for people who's been doing it, they tell me, dude, this is like overwhelming. I break it down. I mean step by step by step by step. And it's still like I don't know.
Well, I don't mean like that, not for any significant period of time.
Right.
Like we're not talking months on it. I'm talking about like do pinch hit for a day or two.
Yeah.
That's
But that's what I tell people. I'm like, I just whatever happened.
The 5 pounds that I put on over the weekend knocked 3 of them back off yesterday. So it's leveling out. I need to not weigh myself every day, but I can't not weigh myself every day. Cassie's coming back in tomorrow.
Oh, okay, cool.
Galen, so the hands off, I thought they were over 100. And BRZ said they were over 100. I don't know what media said 500. That's generous.
Is Chief Morse calling or are you coming?
It's calling. Oh no, you're calling him. Hang on. Oh. Oh man. Oh. Yeah, I'm gonna need a second cup of coffee. Well, I guess technically third because I started off the morning with one, like a little one this morning. Oh. Yeah, I should have called in yesterday and just like, but it's not the kind of job where you can call in sick. So, ugh. All right, what's our forecast looking like? For that, we turn to WBRZ meteorologist Emma Kate Cowan. Happy Tuesday. Happy Wednesday. Happy Thursday. Happy Friday. Happy Monday. Happy every day. Happy everything. Mm. Mm. 737 Talk 1073 FM, WBRP, mornings with Brian Haldane, rolling right along. All right. We've every month we get to welcome in our chief of police, TJ Morse, to the show. And he's out and about. Had a conflict on the schedule this morning, offered to hop on telephonically. I said, absolutely, let's get you in here. Chief Morse, welcome back. How are you, sir?
Good morning. I'm good. Thanks for letting me do it over the phone this time.
No, of course, man. It's I would rather have chief over the phone than no chief at all, to be sure. So we got a lot of ground to cover this morning. I want to start off with the I mean, I guess it's not recent news, but kind of semi-recent news that parades, fairs, festivals, all these things that go on, public events and whatnot. What are we looking at when it comes to who needs to hire their own detail versus what BRPD is going to, who needs to pick up their own tab along the way? How are things going to look different with this?
Yeah, so it's definitely a dynamic conversation. It's one that I think has been needing to have for a long time. And I'm excited to have it. I think we're going to get a bunch of people in the same room together, everybody from, of course, the mayor's office and council members, but then also include our event organizers, the people that throw these big events, parades, downtown development district, Visit BR, all the kind of stakeholders that have a stake in this, and kind of look at the systems that other cities use, New Orleans and other places around the state and even outside the state, but kind of what really brought it up this year and why we're having the conversation right now is just the budget cut that the Baton Rouge Police Department received. Mm-hmm. We cutting $9 million, and most of that coming from pay and overtime, but still expected to provide the same services, and it just doesn't kind of wash out.
Is there so when it comes to the discussion, we're still on the front end of it?
Yes, yeah, we're very much on the front end of what that looks like. The mayor's office has been very gracious in working with us and working with the event organizers, where we're still, so far this year, we just had the Blues Fest this past weekend, along with several other events across the city with the shredding at headquarters and waste management pickup, hazardous waste materials at LSU. All of those events were, had police officers out there that were being paid overtime through the police department budget.
We're talking with Baton Rouge Police Chief TJ Morse about the possibility of what it'll look like if individual events have to pay for their own security detail in the future. Chief, I would imagine that you have your ideas of where you'd like the conversation to head. What are your ideas on I want to start with what you'd like to see happen.
So I think we just need to kind of relook at it. When people are applying for the permit, just kind of include the price of security, public safety as kind of part of that thing. You include the porta potties, you include paying the band that's going to be out there and other stuff. But hey, the security that's provided, fire department, EMS, DPW that's doing the cleanup afterwards, all of that kind of going towards the permit process, because there's no line item in my budget to provide that security for these events. I realize that they bring a lot of times little tourism and things like that. So one of two things need to happen. The budget needs to be relooked at to add those events when we're doing, upwards of, like 300 events a year. Right. That there's some kind of permitting fee that's associated with it, instead of, I get it. Everybody wants to have their fun run with 50 people in it. But when we're having so many of those, it's putting a drain on the officers, and then two, a drain on the budget to provide the street closures and the officers out there working those events. And I'm not saying that the event holders pay 100% of it. I mean, the people that are doing it, help pay for the officers that are out there blocking the street. And then we can pick up the bigger public safety piece, pay for the people that are administrating it, that command piece, the drone operators, the SWAT guys, everything like that, the city can pay for, but having the people throwing the event pick up most of it.
Okay, because I mean, when you're talking about things like the Baton Rouge Blues Festival is a great. I tell you what, let's Live After 5 is a great example. 6 of them in the spring, 6 of them in the fall, but you don't have to block off roads like you would for a Mardi Gras parade. A Mardi Gras parade or any parade, you're going to have like officers basically at every block along the route, making sure nobody's driving through there. That would be a much bigger tab than like say a weekend concert, a Friday evening concert series.
Correct. Some of our big parades, we have over 100 officers there, and it's $40,000 paid out in overtime
right
for that one event.
So is there a way to do that without losing the parade? I don't want to lessen the effects of Mardi Gras in Baton Rouge.
I don't either. And so I think that's why it's important to have the conversations. We need to talk about, hey, what can we do? What are other people doing?
Yeah.
New Orleans has a lot of parades. Of course, they have huge parades. But the parades themselves pay for the street closures. They pay for the security, whether that's through sponsorships or paying or the float, charging the people on the floats more money or what have you. They make it work.
I'm sorry, I'm going to take it down this avenue through sponsorships, like the community coffee barricades.
Yeah, like putting their name on the T-shirt or on the banner or what have you.
Yes. This road closure brought through by the Queen Casino. I love where this is going. One other aspect of this that I want to talk about, though, is maintaining the fact that law enforcement is law enforcement. Is there room in the conversation for private security for a public event?
Yeah, of course. There's always that talk, and they have private security. LSU is a perfect example. They supplement a lot of the security inside the stadium with private security, but for the road closures and the directing traffic and the overall public safety aspect, you're still going to need those armed law enforcement officers that are more trained and doing directing traffic and providing that safety.
We're talking with Baton Rouge Police Chief TJ Morse about some of the public events that might look a little bit different in the future because of some budget cuts along the way. Hey, while we're talking budget, Chief, are the public events really the biggest concern right now, or do we have other concerns with potential cuts coming to BRPD's budget?
No, so the mayor's office has been really good working with us. We're not looking at any future cuts right now, but we're still trying to figure out how we're going to make up for the $10 million cut from last year to this year.
Right.
At the end of the day, a police officer in 2025 is going to make less money they did in 2024 because over 90% of my budget is payroll and overtime. Mm-hmm. So when you're cutting that by $10 million, the officers are going to get less opportunity to make overtime. They're going to make less money. And so that's why a lot of these conversations are starting to be able to be had. Whether it's being 150 officers short and the budget being cut, that's why we're having to have these conversations.
We got our police chief on the phone with us. We've been talking about the budget, but I kind of want to move on. Y'all had an event recently you attended. If we could talk about what is the crisis negotiation competition?
Yeah, so it was the first year ever that the state police held this competition. Me being on SWAT for 15, almost 16 years, I've participated in a lot of SWAT competitions in the past. This year, the state police actually held one for the negotiator side. So SWAT, of course, the guys in the vest and then the Bearcat ramming down the doors usually get all the attention. But there's a whole other piece to the SWAT team. We have the negotiators that talk to the people, especially, that are held up inside of a house or try to talk somebody out, try to resolve things without force peacefully. And so the state police held this competition, first ever time doing it. We sent our negotiators there, 7 guys that make up our negotiation team. They represented really well, came in second place. It was held up in Pineville at the National Guard facility. It was a 6-hour event where they made it as realistic as possible, trying to talk to a role player that was pretending to be a suspect.
So walk me through how they make that as realistic as possible, because you have to pick a very specific scenario to get through, don't you?
Yeah. So all the teams that win, all the departments that went, they all had the same scenario with a role player acting out a very certain thing. held up, with a hostage, and it's basically just they're being judged on their communication skills within, their listening skills, the way they were speaking, the way they were documenting things, trying to meet the bad guys' demands, just kind of talking through all those things that they're experts at, and it's not foreign to the Baton Rouge Police Department. I don't think people realize, the citizens of Baton Rouge, how great our specialized divisions are. K9 just recently competed in a regional competition in Hammond. We swept that first, second, and third place overall, along with a bunch of the smaller competition wins. Our SWAT team goes and competes in Louisiana and in Texas and does really well. Our motorcycle division competes nationally and does really, really well. So we represent on the stage for sure.
Oh, no, absolutely. Absolutely. But if you could, please, in the future, don't lose to Jefferson Parish. I have to have holidays with those people. That's,
yeah. We talked about that, hey, we're going to, next year, no second place, and we need to get first.
Absolutely. And even if you are second, it can't be JP. That's a big no.
They got a good group over there. Our SWAT teams coordinate well, and we do some training together. They have a good team over there.
Absolutely. All right. Before we get you out of here, just a minute and a half left with our police chief, TJ Morse. What's the latest on the Citizens Academy? What are we learning?
So Citizens Academy is actually wrapped up. They had their big scenario. Last week. Scenario night where they responded to 3 simulated calls and got to see what it was actually like to be a police officer. Tonight, we're actually celebrating them with a little graduation ceremony. They're bringing their family, going to get a certificate, that kind of stuff at City Hall tonight. So we're happy to wrap that up. But be on the lookout. It's very popular. We're getting a lot of good feedback. We're going to have another one in the fall. We'll be advertising that. We'd love to see a lot of people sign up for the one in the fall. And we'd love to have you come out there and maybe, get tased. We had about 10 people volunteer to get tased this time for the Citizens Academy.
Yeah, I'm in for the next one for sure. No, it didn't work out of the schedule this time around because, Tuesdays and I've got kids, but I'm in to get tased the next time around. You talked me into it.
We can do. I mean, you don't have to wait till the Citizens Academy. We can do a special one just for you.
I have a feeling you'll be waiting outside for me when the show's over. I don't know why.
It might be a good fundraiser. We could have people auction off. You can see who's the one pull the trigger to tase you. You know what? Let's coordinate that with Crime Stoppers. I would do that for Don and I would do that for Crime Stoppers for sure. He is Chief TJ Morse. Thank you so much for the time. Thank you very much, Brian. I appreciate you.
Yep, always. Here is 750. Here comes your money now on Talk 107.3. Mary, would the caller want to know?
What marathon?
Louisiana Marathon in January. That's pretty big because that's 26 miles you're going to cover.
Recent, coming up.
No. The Louisiana Marathon that runs through town in January.
Yeah. Yep, but that's all he wanted to know. Good question.
Oh. See, I can't raffle off being the one to pull the trigger on the taser because then you get into a hangover situation in the face. I'm not doing that shit. I'm not doing that.
Yeah. Oh. But I think it's not the initial tase that would really. It's the other issues. It's the underlying issues that you mentioned before. Maybe even just problems with your heart or anything. You just hate for that to kickstart something that is irreversible. I don't know. It's scary, especially if you already have heart issues.
Yeah. Well, and I've had nothing but heart issues in my family. We've had heart issues, but I haven't had heart issues.
Right. It's just that, yeah. It's that thought.
Good question, Galen. Galen's asking a great question. You have a First Amendment right to assemble. You have a First Amendment right to protest. Should you have to pay for police presence at that protest? Byron says, I would probably pay to tase Haldane. I have a lot of pent up words with friends angst. We're batting about 500, man. I lose about half the games. In fact, let me see what's up right now. Make it sound like I win every one of them. See, you just got a triple word score. Yeah, I'm gonna win this one, dude. Sorry. Oh. Oh man. I think PF Chang's here. Is that Run DMC? Is that Run DMC?
It is.
Perfection?
My Adidas.
My Adidas. Ah, yeah. 755 Talk 107.3 FM, WBRP. Mornings with Brian Haldane rolling right along. Thanks again to Chief TJ Morse for hopping on board, talking about what are public events going to look like in the future in Baton Rouge when it comes to the security detail there. Who's paying to have the cops out there? It takes a lot of manpower, and when we're looking at budget cuts and overtime's got to get cut, he's going to make up $9 million there. A conversation needs to be had. And just side note, just editorializing here, I love how open he is about having a conversation, and not like, oh, we're going to save that and we'll talk about it after we're done and we come out with a resolution, blah, blah, blah. No, he'll walk the path with you. Had a caller off the air asking about the Baton Rouge Marathon. Like, what's the cost of that? Think about that. The logistics there, the ground they got to cover, the number of, roads got to be blocked off and whatnot. I mean, there's got to be a sliding scale somewhere. You can very, very quickly make an event not feasible. So, we'll continue to have the conversation as we move forward. Hey, got to tell you about the folks over at PF Chang's. If you do not yet have lunch plans, maybe hit up PF Chang's. Maybe hit up one of their fantastic bowls. The Mongolian beef bowl is fantastic, as is the teriyaki beef bowl, as is the sesame chicken bowl. No. Hang on. Last time I was there, crisp honey chicken bowl. Or is it crisp chicken honey? No, crisp honey chicken bowl. Look it up on the menu. It is fantastic. It is. You go with the bowl, and it's that much better for lunch because it's not weighing you down for the rest of the day. You get all the flavors, all the wonderful Asian inspired flavors that you're going to get on the Chang's menu. But it's just that much easier of an order. I mean, you can go full on entree if you want, but if you're hitting up the bowl, it's a great option for lunch. You take advantage of that wonderful ambiance. You take advantage of that wonderful upscale atmosphere. You take advantage of that top-notch service, and then add to it just a little bit lighter on the end when it comes to what you're actually taking in for lunch. You know where to find PF Chang's. They're on Corporate Boulevard in Town Center. Look for the giant golden horse. The big news going into the weekend was about Plaquemines Parish getting $745 million from Chevron. And this announcement causing a number of waves, a lot of angst coming from the oil and gas industry, to be sure. We need to get somebody on to talk about this. Our news partners at Louisiana Radio Network talk with Mike Moncla from Louisiana Oil and Gas Association. Moncla says the state gave Chevron the green light decades ago for this oil exploration.
The state of Louisiana gave them a permit to do so. So the state of Louisiana could have had the foresight to say, well, maybe we shouldn't do this because it might ruin our coast.
Moncla says Chevron and other oil companies were encouraged to conduct oil exploration off the coast for decades.
The state has incentivized, encouraged industry to come in and drill during World War II. And then almost a century later, you're talking about going back and suing those companies for what they did and were begged to do.
And the hard part here is placing blame on the after effects. The hard part here is hindsight being 2020. And then placing the blame on one entity and one entity alone on the back end, which, I mean, if you're going to do that, then you're really stymieing the possibility for future investment.
Companies like my family business with workover barges, there's nothing else you can do with that except cut them up into scrap and sell them for pennies on the dollar and file bankruptcy for your company.
And that's just Mike Moncla from Louisiana Oil and Gas Association. You saw similar responses from the Louisiana Mid-Continent Oil and Gas Association. You saw the Pelican Institute with their response. It's pretty much in lockstep that this is just a bad call and it's bad for business. Hour 3's next. Yep. All right, I can walk around. Oh. This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. Boop, 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 boop. Oh, I meant to go. I'll be back. All right. .806 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP. Mornings with Brian Haldane rolling right along. Brian here with you. John LaBeouf producing. Got a busy third hour for you as well. It's been a busy show thus far and will remain so. State Senator Patrick McMath slated to join us at 8:15. Congressman Troy Carter for a little DC Current presented by LABI. That's coming up at 8:35. Looking forward to both those conversations. Senator McMath has got some interesting bills, one of which is about the health of our kids when it comes to what they are ingesting in schools, what they're eating in schools, to be specific. Wanted to just preview this real quick. The bill is by Senator McMath. He's out of the Covington area. And it basically, it bans a number of dyes and additives that go into foods. But it only does so, if I'm not mistaken, if I read the bill right, it only does so within the schools. So we'll talk about that coming up in our next segment. Also, I want to talk with Congressman Troy Carter about FEMA. He put forth a letter. He and Congressman Cleo Fields put forth a letter saying, please don't get rid of FEMA. But if you don't want to fix something, if you don't want to get rid of something that's broke, tell me how to fix it. That's going to be the nature of that conversation. That's all still to come. Right now, though, we start off your third hour with this day in history. Uh-huh.
All right.
Yes. What happened?
You know what happened, Brian? In
I don't know what happened.
1879, milk is sold in glass bottles for the first time.
Really?
What were they doing before that, Brian? Were they just going
Straight
for
from the
teeth?
cow.
Straight from
the cow.
Mm.
Yep.
Man. You know, Brian, we used to be a superior society. 1893, the Critic reports that ice cream soda is America's national drink.
Really?
National drink.
The ice cream soda,
Ice cream soda.
was the national drink.
Basically just root beer
love-
float, right?
Yeah. Well, no.
But it was soda, so it's...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like a freeze.
Man.
I'd go for that. Oh,
sounds
man, I'd go
good,
for that
right?
right now.
It does.
It's crisp outside right now. It's not really
Yeah.
ice cream weather yet.
No.
Although, you know what? Once it gets full on hot,
Yeah.
like ice cream sounds so good. And then, like, once it's in your stomach, it's like, milk was a bad choice.
Yeah. It was instant regret.
Yeah. There's a lot of Ron Burgundy there.
1943, U.S. President Franklin Roosevelt, in an attempt to check inflation, freezes wages and prices, prohibits workers from changing jobs unless the war effort would be aided thereby, and bars rate increases to common carriers and public utilities. Look at that.
I cannot imagine a scenario where I would have to defend a job change by Venn diagramming it with the war effort.
Right. Yeah.
That's different.
Yes, it is. 1960, U.S. Senate passes Civil Rights Bill with measure against discriminatory voting practices this day.
Yep. I had that one.
1983, this is fascinating. In front of a live audience of a whole 20 tourists, David Copperfield makes the Statue of Liberty disappear.
I remember that.
Yeah.
We watched that on TV.
Nice.
I remember watching it. Okay, Facebook Live. Let's date ourselves now.
Okay, so 20
Who
tourists
remembers-
plus a live
No,
television
there was a
audience.
live television audience for
Okay.
sure. Yeah. All right, Facebook Live. Who remembers watching David Copperfield make the Statue of Liberty disappear on TV?
Was your mind blown? Was it just...
I honestly, I couldn't have cared less. That's
I'm going to have to look up this footage. 1986, Clint Eastwood elected mayor of Carmel, California. Makes his day. We made this comment before, right? Everyone kind of gets their own, some sort of, time in office in California, right?
Yeah.
Celebrity wise, you know? Yeah.
Schwarzenegger was governor for a while. I didn't Sonny Bono wasn't he a mayor of
He was
something?
elected of something, yeah. Hey, you know who wasn't elected? Bernie Sanders, because he dropped out of the Democratic races for U.S. president in 2020.
Yeah, remember that? Boy, man.
Oh man.
Boy. Don't try to tell me your party's on the up and up. Don't even. Bernie should have been your nominee in 2020.
Yes.
If that's what you believe in, push your chips to the middle of the table. Don't check. No, push your chips in and say Bernie's our guy. And you can't 5 years later keep posting about how Bernie would have changed things.
Yeah.
No. He got railroaded twice, by the way.
Twice.
He probably should have been their nominee back in 2016. Just air it out. Get it out there.
Yeah.
If this is what you believe, don't tell me what's palatable, what's winnable. That's what you blame Republicans for. Is that all for the events?
I think so. You got anything?
Haggai says on Facebook Live, of course we watched it. Boom.
There you
See?
go.
Yeah, I had plenty, man. On this day in 1974,
Okay.
Hank Aaron, Hammer and Hank Aaron, hit his 715th home run,
Wow.
breaking Babe Ruth's record. That was on this day.
It's impressive.
On this day in 1979, the final episode of All in the Family aired on CBS. On this day in, where did it go? I've got it on my sports list, so it's a lot longer of a list here. 2014, there it is. On this day in 2014, Breanna Stewart scores 21 points. Stephanie Dolson adds 17 and 16 boards to help UConn beat Notre Dame 79-58. That gave Gino Auriemma his 9th women's national championship, surpassing Pat Summitt, who had 8, and now Auriemma's got 12.
All right.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Good stuff coming out of there. Birthdays. Starting off, Dean Norris, who you may know as Hank from Breaking Bad and the spinoff of Better Call Saul.
No way.
Yep.
Wait, Was Hank in Better Call Saul?
According,
You know what? I haven't watched
Yeah.
all of the last season yet.
Okay.
I kind of bailed on Better Call Saul.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Let's see. Hey, John Schneider today as well.
No kidding.
John Schneider. I knew I had Chris Kyle as well.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know if you ever saw the American Sniper movie.
Yeah.
It was good stuff. Yeah. Biz Markie. Yeah. Speaking of old school hip hop this morning, Biz Markie birthday today.
Psst, don't give me that.
Come on, man.
Don't even give me that.
Why? Oh man.
No, it's from the song.
Oh yeah. I thought. Okay. I got you. I see where you're going.
All right.
I got you. I'm stepping in where you're putting down.
Betty Ford was born on this day in 1918.
Okay.
Kofi Annan this day in 1938.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a couple of them, man. I had wide receiver CeeDee Lamb. It's his birthday today. And basketball player John Havlicek, born on this day in 1940. How about that?
Yeah. Good stuff. Moving on to deaths. I got there are two. Pablo Picasso
Yeah.
and Margaret Thatcher.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not going to have bigger than that. As both, I had both those on my list, but I've also got, and obviously not as big. Well, no. To be fair, U.S. General Omar Bradley died on this day in 1981.
Okay.
So add him to the list. Yep.
As far as national days go, I got International Be Kind to Lawyers Day. How about that, huh?
Yeah.
Unless you want Feng Shui Day.
No. Be kind to Lawyers Day is
Okay.
good enough. I'm happy with that. Glad to get that out of the way before the session starts, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. I hope this segment's not brought to you by the timeshare guy. Nope, the segment's brought to you by Five Star Printing and Signs. Printshop5.com is the website. Printshop5.com, or just give them a call at 271-4096. Take a look around your office. Look at the signage on the walls. Look at your receipts. Look at your billing. Look at your business cards. Anything that's got your letterhead, anything that's got your logo on it, printshop5.com or 271-4096. Is it time for a refresh? Are you putting your company's best foot forward? Give Danny and his team a call at 271-4096 for Print Shop or for 5 Star Printing and Signs. Oh. Yeah. Hey, Moon canceled for today. He'll be in on Monday. So. Yeah, it looks good with that little fridge. Tell you, I would like to fill that fridge with waters, but I know they would just go to everybody. Huh? I can't hear you. In the fridge? So we got it discounted. But $817 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP mornings with Brian Haldane rolling right along. Time to get a little legislative preview, as we do. We're walking you up to the legislative session, which gets underway Monday afternoon. Joining us now is State Senator Patrick McMath from Covington. How are you, sir?
How you doing, Brian? Good morning, man.
Happy to hear your voice.
Yeah, glad. Well, what voice I've got left? It's hey, good to have you on as we're getting ramped up here. You've got a couple of interesting bills that I want to talk about, and then we'll talk about overall what to expect from the session.
Take it away.
Can we start with the additives and the artificial colors, and not going to be in the public school lunches anymore?
Senate Bill 14 is what you're referring to, which is a comprehensive nutrition-based bill. One of the more comprehensive bills involved in the MAHA movement that's taking place across the country, and been working directly with RFK and his people on this bill, as well as other legislators across other states. And one component of that piece of legislation is the prohibition of what we're calling ultra processed food in schools.
Okay, define ultra processed food.
So in the bill, we define it by the use of certain ingredients and dyes, like you mentioned earlier. There's no like hard definition of what is or isn't an ultra processed food, but what we're pulling from other countries that have banned certain types of ingredients that have been found to be harmful to not just children but adults. For those of you who aren't really aware, the big food industry makes a ton of money on these ultra processed foods, and they're designed to be addictive, much like cigarettes were in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And it's having these harmful effects on our bodies. It's keeping us sick. What we put in our bodies is so crucially important to our metabolic health. And there's a reason why 9 out of the 10 number one causes of death in this country are from preventable chronic disease, and it all starts with the food that we eat.
We're talking with State Senator Patrick McMath about starting off with SB 14. That would be banning certain ingredients within school lunches or within the campus itself. Is this just with the lunches, or is this on campus itself? For example, if a kid brings his own lunch and he's got nothing but Twinkies, is he still cool because that's his?
Kid's still cool to eat the Twinkies, although I would advise against that. And we're also not prohibiting, the sale of vending machine products in schools. We've got to take this one step at a time. We're looking to reset the food system and our nutrition system in this country, and that's going to take. That system's been in place for decades and decades, and it's been making us sick for decades and decades. But it's going to take some time to educate people, quite honestly, on what is and what isn't healthy. And listen, there's other components of this bill that I think are worth talking about, if I may. There's notification requirements for restaurants to just notify their patrons if they're cooking in seed oils, which are insanely unhealthy for you. They were used as engine lubricant when they were first developed. There's continuing education courses for physicians to take nutrition and metabolic health-based courses. Over 90% of med schools in this country do not teach doctors anything about nutrition, which is wild. And then there's the prohibition of soda sugary drinks for SNAP recipients as well. That's in this bill, and some warning label language.
Wait, that's in the same bill? I thought that was a separate bill. The no Cokes for SNAP benefits.
Same bill.
Same bill. All right, let's talk about that.
It's comprehensive.
Yeah, very. Let's talk about then the cost end of this. So let's start with the schools. Well, a big part of how these ingredients got into our school lunches in the first place was they were cheaper. They were more cost effective. You could get a belly full for fewer pennies on the dollar. Now that belly full wasn't necessarily fuel for your body, but it was getting the job done of making sure that kids weren't just quote unquote hungry. So cost wise, are costs of school lunches going to go up?
So what we did with this bill is this is a small piece of a national movement. Okay. Mm-hmm. The idea here, and this is being driven by President Trump and RFK, is to cause cause chaos, if you will, but to create basically this patchwork of rules and regulations across the country that will force the food companies to the table to get them to change their ingredients or adapt to market requirements and laws, which they have already done, by the way, in Europe. Okay, Europeans, the Heinz ketchup in Europe does not have high fructose corn syrup like it does here, and it's Heinz ketchup.
Yeah.
So yes, right now, immediately to answer your question, these products would cost more. However, we've built in a pretty long runway for the transition here. I believe the language in the bill is 2027, 2028, maybe 2026, 2027 school year. So we're building out a few years out to give the food companies and, quite honestly, the market time to adapt and come up with more cost-effective, healthier food products.
Is Grow Your Own going to be part of this? Hear me out. There are a number of schools that have active farms on their school grounds, and I find it fascinating every time. Would that be a part of helping defray their own costs?
Great question. I really, really wanted to start out on the farm with some piece of legislation, because that's where it all starts, right?
Right.
If we can incentivize true rotational seasonal crop farmers, local farmers, to be providing and feeding our schools like they do, by the way, in France, and their food is delicious. That is absolutely what we need to do. But we don't have kitchens in schools right now, like anymore, like what I did when I was growing up, and we certainly don't have the infrastructure in place for these farmers to provide all the food to these schools, which is what I was referring to earlier. We need to give the system time to adapt and to change. But yes, we absolutely need to support and incentivize programs, local farmers for providing food to schools, as well as farmers markets and the other thing. And I've already had that conversation with Governor Landry, and we're working on trying to find some revenue at the state level and not just at the federal level to support these local farmers. That has to happen.
It's such an interesting concept and you're going to get so much pushback. I can see the pushback coming, but it's an interesting concept, and it's pivoting from just filling bellies to making sure that food is fuel. And then
we talk about pushback, and I get it that change is difficult and it's uncomfortable for people, but we've got to get to a point where we're prioritizing health over profit. We're going down this road of we should be living to 120 years, and yet we're not. The chronic disease, the chronic inflammation, the chronic obesity in this country is a national crisis, and we're just starting to talk about it post-COVID.
Yeah.
People are just starting to pay attention to their individual health and their outcomes of their children, which is great, and it should be celebrated, and we need to embrace this movement that's taking place. And that is that's reflective in the bill in Senate Bill 14 that I filed.
All right, let's move over to the SNAP benefit into this and no more soda. So I don't want to give an endorsement of any one grocery store over another, although Mathern's does sponsor the show. But a 2-liter of Coke runs $2.79 ish. A 52-ounce orange juice is about $4.49. That's for Simply Orange. You're going to run into the same cost benefit analysis here. Our SNAP dollars not going to go further if we start eliminating the unhealthy stuff?
You know what's wild? As I was having this discussion with somebody in the governor's office, we tax water, but we don't tax soda. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
It's crazy to me, and to other people. We're incentivizing, diabetes in a can, and not incentivizing water, which is one of the healthiest things you can have.
Yeah.
And so there's cost to this. But by the way, we're only prohibiting it for the use of taxpayer-funded program.
Right.
That it should be nutrition-based. The N stands for nutrition, by the way, in SNAP, and which also, by the way, our obesity rates are extremely high in this state. In children, they're nearly 40%, which is wild. The taxpayer also ends up footing that bill when it comes to the healthcare costs of chronic disease and obesity. So again, we have to use some common sense here and prioritize nutrition, water over soda, right? I don't think that's incredibly unreasonable. particularly for a program that's based on nutrition.
Mm-hmm.
And that'll also, over time, drive down our healthcare costs, which make up half of the state's budget, by the way.
Oh, God, you just really opened the pan. We only got 2 minutes left in the segment. State Senator Patrick McMath is with us, and I knew this was going to get me fired up because it is such a great idea, but there's so many different, angles to this. Talk to me about the medical angle here. How long would it take to see some results on the medical front for us to, get healthier?
If we changed our incentive program, our incentives in this country, if we changed our priorities, if we incentivized health over sickness,
mm-hmm.
this country could turn around in 2 years. We'd be the most productive, most dominating force in the world. We were at once. We can do it again. We have to change the incentives, though. We have to incentivize being healthy over being sick. But that is a massive disruption to the system. The fastest growing industry in the United States is not AI, right? It's not oil and gas. It's the healthcare system. I mean, to be just blunt, people make money on Americans being sick.
Yeah.
And that's a much bigger issue, a much longer discussion. But it all starts. It needs to change. I think we can all agree on that.
Yep. And
it all starts with the food that we're eating, the food that we're putting in our body to use as fuel. It has to start with nutrition. And that is what Senate Bill 14 is trying to push.
All right, we're going to have to get you back on to talk about all the rest of the bills at a later point because we're just straight up out of time for this segment. Although, I can ask you one last question on this topic. When it comes to pollution, you can buy carbon offsets. Can we buy Coke if we have treadmill offsets?
That's a good idea, Brian.
I'm here to help. He's State Senator Patrick McMath. We'll talk to you soon, man.
All right, buddy. Thanks.
Thank you so much. 8:30 at Talk 107.3 FM. A treadmill offset. That's what I'm here for. A 2-minute plank. Can we do that? We got news, traffic, and weather coming your way on the back end. We're going to talk with Congressman Troy Carter, a little DC Current, presented by the Louisiana Association of Business and Industry every Tuesday and Wednesday at 8:35. Tuesday is Congressman Carter. Wednesday is Congresswoman Julia Letlow. Let's talk about FEMA and the problems with getting rid of it. That's coming up next. Oh. Hey, Bo. No, he canceled for today. He'll be here on Monday. Well, he'll be from the Capitol on Monday. You good to go to help me out on Monday? Okay. Good. What time? I'll be. No, it's yes. Did he call him David? Oh, it was Congressman Carter. Ow. Oh. All right, let's get a look at that forecast. See what we've got. Oh man, I'm going to make it to the end of the show. I promise. I'm going to make it to the end of the show. Just enough voice left. Let's get a look at your forecast. See what we got going on today. Going to be a little bit warmer. High of 73. Overnight low tide gets back down to 45. We make it up to 78 tomorrow. 83 on Thursday. 81 on Friday. Upper 70s on Saturday. We might be able to stay away from 80 degrees on Saturday, but we will be up to 85 by Sunday, and then, well, it just ramps up from there. Right now, sunny skies and 53 degrees in downtown Baton Rouge. Okay. I've got the DC current open. Yes. Yes. No. I'll toss to it. Yeah, no. 837 Talk 107.3 FM, WBRP. Mornings with Brian Haldane, rolling right along. Patrick McMath got me fired up about the state legislature. Now we're gonna really ramp things up here, talking about FEMA. It's time for DC Current. Joining us now, as he does every Tuesday, Congressman Troy Carter. How are you, sir?
I am doing fine, sir. How are you this morning?
I'm very well as well. We got a couple of different topics to talk about today. I want to start off with your letter about FEMA. Talking about making sure you want to protect it. It's looking like Kristi Noem, she's head of Homeland Security, excuse me.
Yes.
Kristi Noem, head of Homeland Security, is tossing around the possibility of getting rid of FEMA. You are 100% against that. Please tell me why.
I am 100% against it. Letter in conjunction with my dear friend and colleague, Representative Cleo Fields, to the president, asking him to please abandon any thought of dismantling FEMA.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, FEMA is far from perfect.
Yes.
But the Trump administration proposed cutting of FEMA is it's not just reckless, it's dangerous. Now listen, we have had some of the most horrific storms and natural disasters known to man to hit Louisiana. And heretofore, we have been able to recover largely because of the resiliency of our people, but also because of having FEMA dollars readily available. Listen, I'd be the first to tell you that we have been fighting to reform and to make FEMA better. But to dismantle it is certainly not the answer. The prognosticators are suggesting that we're going to have a very, very hectic hurricane season. We do not need to find ourselves in a situation where we don't have FEMA or a like organization in place to deal with the major storms that we have. In Louisiana, we have major recipients of FEMA assistance with nearly 500,000 combined households. That's a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we look at nearly $47 billion over 28 disaster incidents, serving approximately 3.5 million households. This is not something that we can just unilaterally with a chainsaw because we want to root out waste, fraud, and abuse. Listen, I am 100% supportive of rooting out waste, fraud, and abuse. But there's a surgical way to do it, not with a chainsaw. You can't throw the proverbial baby out with the bathwater. And this notion that we can come in and just unilaterally make cuts without identifying the needs or the recipients of those needs, I think it's very, very dangerous. And I think I'm in concert with all of our members who are having grave concerns. But again, Congressman Fields and I wrote a letter to the president asking them to pump the brakes on any such actions. And we're very hopeful. We're going to continue to push this. You know, in 2024, FEMA responded to over 100 disasters, including 2 catastrophic hurricanes, Helene, Milton. And we're still, as you know, we're still recovering from storms. We're still recovering from past instances. So we're going to continue to push back and hope that we will gain steam and the administration will look kindly to our request to not do away with the functions of FEMA. And if we have to reform it, I have been begging for FEMA reform since becoming a member of Congress and beyond. I welcome being on any committee or task force to rewrite, to reform the Stafford, and everything else associated with emergency preparedness. But dismantling it is not an option.
Somewhere along the way, FEMA went from being the Federal Emergency Management Agency to being the Federal Everything Management Agency. How would you go about paring it down or narrowing the scope to where they could actually handle emergencies?
Well, you would then, as you said, it needs to be, and as I've said repeatedly over the years, it needs a rewriting of the Stafford Act.
Yeah.
It needs a reform so you can narrow its services to make sure that it's doing specifically what it is needed for, and that is to be prepared for natural disasters as we see them happening more frequently, happening in places they've never happened before, happening with greater intensity. We need to have a new and improved or reimagined FEMA, but not a dismantling of FEMA.
Well, Congressman Troy Carter is our guest. This is DC Current, presented by LABI. What would that look like, though? Because something would have to go somewhere else, right? Something would have to be picked up by another government department, or at some point the government would have to say, like, we've done enough and you could stand on your own 2 feet now.
Well, I think that would be an irresponsible position to say we've done enough, because we know these storms continue to come. It would bankrupt states and cities across the country.
No, Congressman, don't get me wrong. When the next storm comes, they're back into effect. I just mean that we tend to dig ourselves into a hole where only government can pull ourselves out of. And I would like to see FEMA in some form or fashion to where they handle the emergency and the emergency only.
Well, I mean, and I hear you, Brian, and I'm going to give you a little gentle pushback here, because there are
Yeah.
literally millions of people across the state of Louisiana that really depend on every aspect of FEMA. That the emergency preparedness, the dealing with the aftermath of the emergency, the repairing of their homes, to getting their businesses back up and going. There are a lot more things that FEMA does that are part of emergency preparedness that doesn't always meet the eye. Now, I agree with your earlier statement that maybe there are some parts of FEMA's role that has expanded over the years that should be taken back to Homeland Security, or maybe HHS, or into the various agencies within federal government that might be more appropriate. So a streamlining so they can zero in on the pre, actual, and post of storm and all the residuals that come from that is not a luxury, it's a necessity. Louisiana has seen it more than anybody else.
Oh, yeah.
Now we're seeing wildfires, mudslides, and tornadoes in places we've never seen them before. I would suggest we need a reimagined, reinforced, steroid version of FEMA, not a dismantling of, and a modified one that can be much more specific. I agree with you totally. But to do away with it, I assure you, my friend, the listeners all over the state are saying it may be flawed, but it's better than nothing.
Yes, and I think there's a strong sentiment there as well. And there's another sentiment, Congressman Carter, where I think the needs of a federal emergency management agency are different in South Dakota than they are in New Orleans, or they are in Louisiana. And then Christy Noem, coming from South Dakota, might not be as well versed on what we deal with here. And on the preparedness front, I would argue that, like, just the needs of every state are going to be different. So federalizing anything's going to be tough to walk through.
That's a fact.
Yeah,
that's a fact. And we're not a one-size-fit-all country either. So they have issues that we don't have. We have issues that they don't have. And listen, I would 7 days a week, as I did with the last FEMA administrator and Secretary of Homeland, would absolutely invite our secretary and our FEMA administrator to walk through the neighborhoods of Louisiana with me, to show the devastation, and to talk to the citizens of every race, of every party, of every background, the devastation that has wreaked havoc on their lives, and in many cases still wreaking havoc on their lives. Yeah. Not to mention the greatest loss is the loss of life and loved ones, but people who are still struggling to rebuild their homes and their businesses. And here we are again on the eve of what could be a catastrophic hurricane season. The thought of dismantling FEMA is causing quite a bit of heartburn for the citizens of Louisiana, and I suspect across the country.
We got Congressman Troy Carter with us. This is DC Current, presented by the Louisiana Association of Business and Industry. We only got 3 minutes left in the segment, Congressman Carter, and I want to make sure I touch on this. You and Nancy Mace. That's where we're at here. Have introduced a bill to require healthy milk alternatives in school and to reduce waste here. What goes into this?
Well, we have what we're deeming the Fiscal Act, Freedom in School Cafeteria and Lunches Act, which requires schools to provide a milk substitute. We know that, unfortunately, many students are lactose intolerant, yet it is the only, in some cases, the only, or at least the most nutritious meal that they will get. They go into the classroom and they consume milk, and their bodies can't digest it. We just had a situation where a 6-year-old who was in fact lactose intolerant drank a carton of milk, Had to go to the restroom. The teacher let her go. She came back. She had to go again. The teacher wouldn't let her go. And she had a horrible accident in class. And then add insult to injury, the teacher made her clean it up herself.
Mm.
This is a 6-year-old baby. And that just denotes the significance of the problem. This is one incident. But think about people, we want our kids to do well in school, but they've got to sit in class after drinking milk, and they can't concentrate because their poor stomachs are upset. How do you concentrate when you have that physical and emotional issue going on? We know that the percentages of Latinos, Asians, African Americans, and even our Jewish brothers and sisters are lactose intolerant to the numbers of 65, 75, and 90% in some cases where people are in fact lactose intolerant. This bill does not aim to challenge or to do damage the dairy industry. We're merely saying that there should be a nutritional equivalent, rather it's almond or soy or some other measure that kids will have an alternative to drinking with their lunch other than milk. Now, here's the fiscal responsibility part that comes with it.
Please.
Some $400 million annually of unopened milk cartons go into the trash every year because kids who identify they can't drink it simply drink nothing, and it goes into the waste pail. $400 million annually. Listen, we can cut that in half and have some other alternatives and do several things. One would be more fiscally responsible. We're not wasting product. 2, we're not making children sick. 3, we're giving them an opportunity to have a nutritional equivalent that their bodies can, in fact, digest. It really is shockingly a no-brainer. I'm proud that it's a bipartisan measure and hopeful that we will get this over the goal line through the Senate and to the president's desk, because it is, in fact, a common sense measure that will give our young people a fighting chance at being able to concentrate in class, have a good meal, and save money on the federal government's dime.
He is Congressman Troy Carter, joins us at about this time every week for DC Current, presented by LABI. Congressman Carter, have a great week. I'm already looking forward to the next conversation.
You too, my friend. Have a fantastic week. God bless.
You as well. All right, we're coming up. We're at 8:50 right now at Talk 107.3 FM, WBRP. I tell you, there's a lot to clean up from that. We'll do it on the back end. Take a break. We'll check traffic. Coming back next. Sorry. Your money now is the lockout. God.
You said 3 minutes. Dude's like, you know what? Give me 10.
Well, to be fair, he went exactly. I should have told him 2,
yeah.
So he would have gone 3.
Yeah. Oh man. Let's take all that in. But it's already been established that the poor little 6-year-old had to clean up her own poop because she was making freaking cave paintings with it.
Yes.
Making art in the bathroom. Since when the lactose intolerance play a racial issue?
$8:55 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP mornings with Brian Haldane rolling right along. I got to remind you about the folks over at Vex European. Check them out online at vexeuropean.com. VEX, that's V as in Vinny. VexEuropean.com. Who needs Vex European? Well, anybody who drives a European vehicle. They will pair you with a master level technician for your make of vehicle. If you've got a Land Rover, you get a Land Rover tech. Jaguar tech. You see where I'm going with this, right? And then from there, your car's history will follow you around like your chart does at your doctor's office, making sure that your vehicle is taken care of to maximize not just the lifespan of the vehicle, but the performance of the vehicle. When you buy a European vehicle, you expect a certain level of performance. You want something out of it, right? That's what they do over at Vex European. Vinny and his team have been at it for over a decade now, celebrating their 10th anniversary over at Vex European, making sure that you're getting the most performance out of your vehicle. VexEuropean.com. I am all kinds of fired up right now. I've got no voice left, but I'm all kinds of fired up right now. Those last two conversations between Senator McMath and Congressman Troy Carter, those last two conversations are I'm ready to go tackle the world, man. Let's go back to State Senator Patrick McMath for just a second. I know it might sound silly to say no more Cokes if you're on SNAP. And we want healthier foods. We want to eliminate certain ingredients in the cafeteria. This is not far off from what Congressman Carter was pitching when he talked about using almond milk non-dairy alternatives in the cafeteria as well. The easy answer there would be, well, just let them drink water. Yes, that's the easy answer. Absolutely. But what you're not getting with water, you're not getting any proteins, you're not getting any calcium, any vitamin D, any vitamin E, any potassium, any sodium, or any other carbohydrates along the way. Milk isn't just there as a beverage to wash down what you eat. The milk is there as part of the overall fuel. I get it. Now, moving over to Congressman Carter's argument, he brought up the 6-year-old girl with the lactose intolerance. He did not bring up which instance that was talking about. I don't know if there's another case, but if we're talking about that story out of Zachary, he probably should curb using that as an example, because there's a lot going on behind the scenes that is not public in that story. And by the way, have you heard anything more about it? Are they pushing these teachers any further along the way? There's a lot going to come out on that one. He might not want to die on that hill. So, I'm just saying. I'm just saying. You could have the argument about having an alternative, a lactose-free alternative, without going down that path. But, oh man, yeah, that's the wrong horse to back right there. Do we have enough time? The conversation about FEMA, I want to have a lot deeper. This is something that Congressman Garrett Graves, and I'm going to go back and find the audio. This is something Congressman Garrett Graves wanted to tackle as well. I don't think Congressman Carter like, I know we always put him on the left, right? He is a Democrat. He is, I get that. But needing to overhaul FEMA without completely flushing FEMA is an important topic that we're going to have to talk about at a later time. Hey, before we get out of here, let me remind you about Cajun Soft Wash. CajunSoftWash.com is the website. As the sun's coming back out and the temperatures are warming up, let's move on with the spring cleaning. And spring cleaning isn't just for inside. Take a look outside your house as well. Got a little bit of green tinge on there, maybe a little bit of a mold, algae, mildew back to building up. CajunSoftWash.com. Maybe on your roof. Oh, Brian, how can I look at my roof? CajunSoftWash.com. You don't get up on your roof. Get their drones up there to look at it. 100% safe and effective soft washing process. They're not going to power blast your roof or your walls or anything like that. It's a soft wash process. They can do your roof. They can do your walls. They can do your sidewalks. They can do your business. Check them out online at CajunSoftWash.com. All right, we have got, we're done for today. Moon's up next. said that. Are we still on Facebook? Guys, I'm gonna get out of here. I gotta save the rest of my voice. We'll see y'all later.